Hello, welcome. I'm recording this a little bit here just to start off and welcome you all to Human Development. This course is going to take 8 weeks to go from prenatal to old age. We're going to talk about social, emotional, cognitive, cultural, all these different aspects of physical, all these different aspects of development from prenatal through the end of life. It's kind of a cool class because often in my undergrad classes, we tend to just do one piece at a time of that and like hone in on stuff, which is cool, but we also miss the ways that different kind of family dynamics and different dynamics of the ways that these different age groups might interact because of what's going on in different people's lives when they're interacting. So um, we don't get as much about interactions in context when you're looking as focused on one little age group. So part of what we're going to be doing here is in this class is looking at context. That's a big part of my training and I believe really important for looking at development in general. So that's a part of what I got to weave through all of the assignments for this class and how we look at development in general. Okay, so I wanted to introduce myself a little bit here, and my way of doing that is to uh, begin to share screen here, and I'll just give you an idea of what the kinds of things that I study here. So we'll do a slideshow from this slide. Cool. So that's me in the middle. I study child development, in particular looking at older elementary kids and preteens are both the kind of the age groups that I'm most interested in and that I've done most of my work with. I'm interested in what kids learn when we aren't specifically designing context for them to be learning. I would argue that kids are learning all the time, no matter what it is that they're doing. And so sometimes the things that they're learning may be very prescribed, maybe very organized, very direct, as we do in school, but there's also a ton of other things about how to learn and why to learn and what kinds of social kinds of strategies we might use to learn that are taught in very implicit ways, but kids are learning, right? So the other cool thing about looking at kids learning outside of contexts that are built for kids to learn, like schools, is if you look at the picture in the middle down there with the kids and older woman who's stirring stuff in a bowl, look at that motivation. Like that, those kids want to know what's going on with that, right? They're intrigued. They want to learn this. Um, and there's some genuine learning for the purpose of being a part of a community, of knowing what's good in the community, of getting to eat the cookies that she's making, right? That you're able to see often in cases where kids are learning things that are not, where it's not kind of set up for them to be learning. So anyhow, that is me. I've looked at this cross-culturally, and most of my work has been looking at kids, the social and context of kids learning outside of schools. Okay, so the next thing I wanted us to do is just to sketch out the syllabus really quick. So the main texts that we're going to use here for the class are Arnett and Davies. Newman and Newman I have here on the syllabus as a required text, but I'm really actually going to supply that for you. That's this first week. And because it's too hard for folks to get that book so quick, I'm just going to supply those chapters for you. It is a required reading, but you don't have to go and buy that book. The cool thing about the other texts are that I've supplied via email. For most of you have gotten an email from me with a link to find these other texts for cheaper. You can use previous editions of these texts, right? We're in the 3rd edition for Arnett, and we're in the 4th edition for Davies. So there are earlier editions. They're going to be, they're not going to be the same. Older editions may be missing newer research, but they're going to have a lot of the same kind of classic studies in them. So if you, because of cost and how often you think you'll use this after this class, want to go for an older edition, I understand you got to do what you got to do. I'm not responsible for differences between the editions. I'm going to be using the most recent one. So there's a little bit of risk there. It's unlikely that you're going to cite something and I'm going to be like, no, that's completely wrong. But page numbers, structure of the book may be a little bit different, unlikely. So those are the main texts. I also wanted to say, pardon me, for the Davies text, this is really good, and I know former students who have taken this class with me that are in clinical have used this as a reference. Unfortunately, it only goes through childhood. It doesn't go into later life, so we can't use it as the text for the whole course. And it is definitely pitched to very clinical applications, right? So it may not be as useful for folks who are looking at IO. The Arnett text, the reason that I chose this one, not only there's a ebook that's pretty cheap, which is awesome, of this newest edition, but also because they do a really good job of looking at cross-cultural work. It's important to know, okay, so this is what's going on with 4-year-olds and this is what's going on with teens. Okay, wait, based on whom? Studies with which kids? Where in the US, right? And it's usually in the US. A lot of our studies are in Western industrialized cultures. So what does that mean about what goes on elsewhere? And Arnett is really good at kind of weaving that in. And so that's part of why I think that is an important perspective to take. Okay, so those are required texts. The way that we're going to do this course is basically you have, let me skip down here to what our assignments are in general. There we go. Okay, so a lot of this course is discussion online and papers. I don't have tests for this class. I find that it is easier for me to tell what you know and don't know by how we discuss things. Also by the way that you frame things in your papers. And that's more telling than tests anyway. So we're going to do papers and weekly discussion. I'm going to try a new thing. This is honestly the first time I've tried this. It worked really well for one of my classes that I switched to virtual this spring because of COVID. I know many of you probably were involved in some of those switches mid-semester. I'm going to go ahead and say we've got a weekly discussion and you can post responses online that are words and just participate with words, respond to other people who are posting on the discussion board and do that. Or you can participate in a in-person Zoom with however many people show up and myself on Thursdays at 7 your time. And so that way we can have a interpersonal interaction about it. If you have questions, I can answer those. That face-to-face, although it's remote, has been really important for students in other classes. So I'm going to put that in here as well. If you don't want to take advantage of it, you have the option of posting when you can post, right? Because I also know that's part of the deal about online classes, is that while there may not be the social contact, right? It is, if when I can write the paper is 2 in the morning, then it's fine, it doesn't matter, right? If when I can post on the discussion board is 10:30 in the morning, Good, awesome. So long as it's before the due date for that week, you're solid. Do what makes sense for you. I will be available every Thursday at 7 anyway. So if you want to come talk to me in Zoom, then that's cool. If not, then I'll be looking at your discussion board posts and responding as I can to those as well. Okay, because it's simpler and it makes sense and it's just why complicate things. This class is out of 200 points. You can see the biggest single project here is the lifespan analysis, which is an interview with an older person. Um, we'll talk a little bit more about that as it comes up. But the thing that you should know at this point is that you may be thinking about who in your life you'd like to interview. The goal here is to talk to somebody not only about what kinds of social, emotional, maybe cognitive as well, things are going on for them in their particular stage of adulthood that they're in, but also to consider with them how the historical era and the socio-political kinds of events that they have lived through may have shaped their development, right? This is, again, putting development in context, right? You'll see this as a trend for me, right, in this class, putting development in context. So you'll be asking them about, okay, so what does it mean to be in your 90s? What does it mean to be an elder? What does it mean to be a young adult with a new family, right? And how is that maybe influenced by Corona? How is that influenced by the recession in 2008? For folks that are older, how was that influenced by the Kennedy assassination? Right? How was that influenced by World War II? And people may say that it wasn't, and that's fine. But our job here is to consider the ways the world has changed and the world that they were growing up in may have informed their journey through development, right? I'll give you some good sites that we can use as a basis for that. One of them we'll read this first week. Okay, the other papers we've got, connection papers. This is, I'm asking you to observe a kid out there in the world, see a kid doing a thing, connect that. That's very objective. As objective as possible description of what the kid did behaviorally, right? To theory and research, right? It's identify a behavior, tell me what you can make out of it given developmental theory and developmental research. So we've got two of those, two different points in childhood. So I'm hoping you'll do an earlier one and a later one. This is better for you to have the experience of looking at multiple age groups. Then the only other paper that we have is human development and your research topic. This is basically telling me what you might use from this class to inform either your dissertation research, thesis research, or your practice, right? So what is it that we've talked about teens that might influence how you talk with teens in family practice? What is it about young adults and what's going on for young adults and what their pressures and milestones that they're working with are that might inform how you would consult with a business about productivity, right? So thinking about how this might inform things you already care about. So this is another, it's a sneak on my part, because if you can connect new information to stuff you already know and already care about, you are more likely to remember it. So I'm asking you to make that connection so that this, what you're getting from this class will be more valuable to you, okay? So that's my master plan. That is what we're doing. For this week, I'm going to ask you first to do an introduction of yourself on the discussion board. And then I'll post another small lecture looking at um, the theoretical background. The theoretical background we're covering this first week is kind of a good basis for whatever we're going to build on going forward. You can use this in your papers for the connection paper. You're supposed to connect to a theory. We're going to cover a ton of them. So you can come back to this. This might be like kind of your home base this first week. Okay, going forward, I look forward to meeting you online, either through Zoom meetings or in our responses to the weekly discussion posts. And it'll be a good and hopefully productive for you and me 8 weeks. Look forward to it. Thanks.